Welcome back to the channel. Aaron here from the Bitcoin Bros, and we got a lot to get into here today, giving you guys an update on strategy, on some recent Bitcoin news, and also some Bitcoin treasury companies. I have a couple of clips, so make sure to stay tuned for everything in today's video. But as we can see right here, strategy acquired an additional 390 Bitcoin for around $43 million. Now, my prediction was around $50 to $100 million, so I got pretty close there from the video on Sunday. And now they're holding around 640,808 Bitcoin. And people are probably looking at this like, this is not that much Bitcoin. This doesn't increase their stack too much. But what's really good about this Bitcoin purchase is this came from the preferreds. It came from Strike, it came from Strife, and it came from STRD. So those three products alone, they were able to hit the ATMs on those and raise $43 million to buy Bitcoin. And why I'm really excited about this is if you look at Strategy's website, you look at STRD, you look at the average trading volume per day, it's around $11 million. You're looking at STRK around $17 million, and then STRF is around $16 million. Those are the three products that they were able to tap the ATMs on to buy Bitcoin, all these preferred instruments here. But what's really interesting about this is they were able to raise $50 million in a week, which is really good to see from the preferreds because all this stuff is really new. They just came out with the preferreds this year. A lot of people don't even know that these exist. They don't know the difference between the different preferreds. They don't really understand what's going on here as of yet. Strategy, we'll get to it in a second, just got their first rating, and there's more to come on that as well, which is going to be good for these preferreds. But if we look at STRC, the trading volume for STRC is a lot bigger than these other three vehicles. STRC, you can see the average trading volume over the past 30 days is $62 million. So once STRC hits that 99 to 101 price, they want to keep it in between, we can start to see strategy take advantage of the STRC ATM, and that could bring a lot of additional funds bigger than these other three prefers where we've seen some decent inflows from them. But it looks like STRC, as of right now, has the most trading volume. So it probably will be the product that they're able to acquire the most Bitcoin from, and they'll be able to raise the most funds from. And if you are a bit confused on how these different preferreds are, tapping the different markets, you can take a look at this one here. You can see MSTR is obviously the equity. STRK sits between the bonds and the equity, because with STRK, you're able to redeem STRK for MSTR once MSTR hits $1,000. And then STRF and STRD are targeting the bond market, while STRC is targeting the money market. You can see how much money is in all these different pools of capitals. And this is what strategy is attacking right now with these different preferred offerings. And then we had some pretty big news that came out yesterday. S&P Global Ratings has assigned Strategy Inc. a B- issuer credit rating. This is the first ever rating of a Bitcoin treasury company. And this is huge, but I mean, if you look at what this actually means, a B- credit rating is considered highly speculative and falls into the non-investment grade category, often referring to as a junk bond. So why this is so huge is because it is the first rating for a Bitcoin treasury company, but also as this rating goes up, it allows additional pension funds with massive amounts of money to move into some of these perpetuals. And that is what's coming. If you look at how the S&P Global is rating strategy right now, over the next 12 months, they could lower the rating if strategy's access to the capital markets is impeded either due to a market deterioration in Bitcoin valuation or for any other reason. We believe there is an increased risk that the company will not be able to manage maturity out of the money convertible debt. So they're still worried about the convertibles that strategy has outstanding. I'm thinking that strategy, what they're going to do is they're going to probably clean up those convertibles, and they're probably not going to even issue any more new converts in the future because of the S&P Global rating. And then you can see right here, an upgrade is unlikely in the next 12 months. Over the longer term, we could raise the ratings if we expect the company to improve US dollar liquidity. Strategy reduces its use of convertible debt, which is probably coming, and the company continues to demonstrate strong access to capital markets even during Bitcoin stress. So, and my thoughts on this are strategy over long term is going to get rated higher, which is going to allow these preferreds to be able to be invested in by more institutional investors, insurance companies, and pension funds. And that's where we're going to see more and more money flow into these products because strategy is going to be given 10, 12% APY versus all these other bonds out there that are not giving anything close to what strategy is giving. And I think S&P Global right now is not really understanding what the value of strategy and how over collateralized these preferreds are right now. And as the years go on, and as Bitcoin goes up to $1 million, and as these preferreds are out there for more and more time, and as they raise more and more money in these preferreds, I think the market's going to look at that, and the S&P Global is going to look at that and say, hey, these should be rated higher. They've been around for a long time. They're giving a great return every single year. And Bitcoin's price has continued to go higher, which has just made these preferreds even stronger, even more over collateralized. So they will get a higher rating. I think it just takes some time for them to get there. And then once that happens, it's just more capital that's going to flow into the door. That strategy is going to use that capital to buy more Bitcoin. So I think this is actually really huge that they got the initial rating from the S&P Global. And then some other news here for strategy. Norway's largest pension fund, KLP, increases its positions in strategy to $29 million. So that is definitely good to see there. And then let's pivot away from strategy a little bit and get into some other news. Let's get into Eric Trump and a BTC. They just bought a decent amount of Bitcoin, another 14 Bitcoin, and it brings their treasury total to around 3,865 BTC. So Eric Trump is all in on Bitcoin. He's probably the reason why President Trump is so bullish and for Bitcoin now versus him being against it a couple of years ago. And there's a clip here I want to share with you guys from Eric Trump, and he's talking about Bitcoin. So let's go ahead and see what he has to say here.
Why should any government be buying Bitcoin? Because it's the single greatest performing asset over the last decade, increasing in value 70% a year, year over year, every year. Like Germany a couple of years ago, there was a great article. You might know the exact numbers, but Germany had like 30,000 Bitcoin or something along those lines, and they sold it right away. They monetized it into their currency, and it was like the worst investment ever made by a government. And by the way, that's a pretty damn low bar, as you know, right? The government should definitely have certain crypto assets on their balance sheet, mainly Bitcoin. And actually the United States government does, right? You have a lot of forfeitures.
Correct.
And they've taken a great stance saying that we're not selling any of it. You have a lot of countries around the world that are actively buying. If you go to, the UAE, if you go to a lot of countries, they are actively putting that in their treasuries. And you look at the Fortune 500 companies, they are actively hoarding Bitcoin. The biggest families, the biggest companies, countries, sovereign wealth funds, and individuals are all hoarding Bitcoin, right? It's why it's been as explosive as it is. And it's funny, people are like, oh, well, Bitcoin's down like 3% now. It's like this time last year, Bitcoin was at like 55,000 or 60,000 roughly. It's had unbelievable explosive growth.
So as you can see right there, Eric Trump believes that other countries are buying Bitcoin. This is going to be huge for Bitcoin, especially when these countries announce that they're buying Bitcoin. And we just saw this from France here. They proposed a groundbreaking bill to acquire 2% of all Bitcoin, creating Europe's first strategic reserve. That would be 420,000 Bitcoin over around 7 to 8 years using nuclear and hydro power, protecting the nation's financial sovereignty. We think this will be a great idea for France to do. Now, this is huge that some politicians in France are even considering this, and this bill is even going to be, introduced, because this is not something we were seeing 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago when it comes to Bitcoin. There's a lot of speculation, but now we're seeing policymakers and politicians really start to buy into the idea of Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset. Whether this happens or not, I don't really know. But just because it's even being brought to the board doesn't mean it won't happen 5, 10 years from now over in France. So like you just saw right there, Eric Trump said that there are countries buying, and you can see there are other countries, starting to think of the idea of putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So let's go ahead and get into some of the Bitcoin treasury companies. We have Orange BTC. They acquired another 7 Bitcoin. They now hold around 3,708 BTC. Good to see you there. And then we have BitPlanet. They purchased 92.67 Bitcoin. So they're going to be increasing their Bitcoin holdings daily, as you can see right here. And that is just another company who's going to be buying BTC. That is good to see there. And then Strive acquired another 72 Bitcoin. They now hold around 5,958 BTC in Strive. This company, I believe their stock price blasted off the other day. They were up around 20% in a single day, if I remember correctly. And then you have South Korean public company BitPlanet. They bought an additional 9 Bitcoin, and they now hold over 100 BTC. That's good to see. Digital X Ltd. They acquired 2 more Bitcoin. at around, now they have a total over 504 Bitcoin. And then you have Prenetics. They're looking to raise $48 million to buy more Bitcoin. And you have Metaplanet. They're looking to deploy a $500 million credit line to buy more Bitcoin. So yeah, just going through all these companies, guys, and you can see the BitDeer. They're also holding, more of their Bitcoin that they're mining. You're seeing a lot of the Bitcoin miners now. They're not just selling all the Bitcoin that they're mining. They're actually holding some for long-term holdings there. So I'm just showing you guys all this just because it's really good to see that even though MNAVs have compressed, there has been some fear in the Bitcoin market that a lot of companies are still buying more BTC. And what we're seeing in the public market, these companies are continuing to buy more Bitcoin. You see these green arrows here. These are all companies that have added recently over the past week. And we're not seeing any red. That is the main part. We're not seeing these companies sell. We're seeing these companies continue to buy more and more Bitcoin. Even if it's just 1 or 2 Bitcoin, it might not be a massive amount, but that is still a good signal that a lot of companies are looking to acquire more Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And then with that, the ETFs have bounced back here over the past 2 days. As you can see, yesterday we had a $150 million inflow for the Bitcoin ETF. More money piling into the Bitcoin ecosystem. And I think that the Bitcoin ETFs, I think these have been one of the biggest drivers of the Bitcoin price to the upside. And I think that the Bitcoin ETFs have been the biggest factor in the Bitcoin price. They have been the most important way for a lot of capital to flow into Bitcoin outside of strategy. I think the Bitcoin ETFs are even more important than the Bitcoin treasury companies. But right now, all the Bitcoin treasury companies, they hold, at least the public ones, hold over 1,050,000 Bitcoin. So they're continuing to buy more BTC there. And yeah, just to leave you guys with this is a Bitcoin update. The Mt. Gox repayments have been postponed for 1 year. So that is all the news I wanted to get through in today's video. I really appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end of the video. I hope you found some value. If you did, make sure to hit that like button. Check out the affiliate links that we have in the description below and the comment section below. We have sign up for iTrustCapital and BTCC. You sign up with them, they're giving free sign up bonuses. So make sure to check that out. A lot of these exchanges, they give away free money when we are in bull market. So make sure to check that out if you guys haven't already. And my name is Aaron from Bitcoin Bros. I'm out. See you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day.